Alright, so welcome back to another episode here at GoRails, and specifically welcome back to your first Ruby gem part 2. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up version control via Git. So we'll make a new repository on GitHub. We will commit all of our current work that we've done up until this point from the last video. We will push that up to our new repository on GitHub. I also want to set up some very simple testing or set up a very simple testing setup for our project. And also we will set up a very basic GitHub action workflow that we can run when we push changes to our code in the future. It will kick off our test suite and make sure everything still passes. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first things first, I'm going to come over to GitHub here. I'm going to click this new button to make a new repository. I will name this parity prop to be in line with our project that we're working on here. For the description, let's go ahead and pop over to Ruby gems and we'll look for our gem, and we'll grab the description here and just drop that in as well. Let's copy that, paste that in. We'll keep it public. We're not going to worry about a README right now. We will probably add one in ourselves later. And then let's just go ahead and create this repository. All right, so now that that is done, what we can do is we have not run git init in our local project directory yet. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to hop over to the terminal and I'll just run git init to create a new empty git repository. And let's do a quick git status. Okay, that's all of our files that we've worked on so far. We haven't been tracking anything, so everything is untracked up until this point. So let's go ahead and just add everything, and we'll do an initial commit here. Okay, initial commit, and now let's go ahead and grab the code from this second option here to push our existing repository that we just created on the command line, to go ahead and push that up to GitHub. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, and now that that's done, let's pop back over to GitHub and refresh the page here. Okay, great. So we've now set up our project to be tracked with Git, and we have a repository created up on GitHub. So first step accomplished. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on building out our test setup for our code. Now, one thing we could do is we could use Rake. Rake has a test task we can use in order to run all of our test files. But right now, I'm thinking we're probably only going to have one test file and probably just start with the one test. And I don't think at this moment it's worth pulling in the dependency of Rake in order to run just that one test file. We can do it in just Ruby code. We can get it all set up and get Ruby to run our test for us. So that's the approach we're going to take now. All right, so back over in our terminal, let's look at our directory structure right now. We have our lib directory, which has our gem code inside of it, inside of the parityprop.rb file. We have our built gem, and then we also have our parityprop.gem spec. So let's go ahead and create our test directory right now. So we'll do that, and then now let's make our first test file inside of our test directory. So I'm going to say touch test/test underscore, let's go with parityprop.rb. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and open up my editor here. And then let's go into our test directory and then into that new file that we created. So now that we're here, first things first, we are going to use Minitest here. Minitest comes with Ruby. It's part of the standard library. And in fact, if we go look at the Ruby doc page and we go to standard lib, inside of here, if we do a search for Minitest, we can see right here, it comes up right there. So Minitest is what we're going to use for testing this right now. So the first thing we want to do is inside this file is we want to require Minitest. Specifically, we want to require Minitest auto run. So that will get us set up for running our tests right there. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to tell this file some way to access our code from the gem. So if we were to write out our test right now and trying to call our split by parity method, we wouldn't have it available inside this file. So we have a couple options here on how we can get that code required into this file. We could push the lib directory onto our load path, and then on another line say require parity prop, and Ruby would search all the directories in our load path and try to find one that's like parity prop.rb. The other option we have is we can use a require relative. So we'll go ahead and do that this time around. It's a little bit easier to look at on the eyes if you're kind of just getting started with this stuff here. So we'll say require relative, and then what we want to do is we want to go give it the path as a string from the current directory that we're in to our lib directory and to our parity prop file. So from test, we need to go up one into the root of our project. So that would be the 2 dots, and then we'll say /lib/parity prop, and we'll go ahead and end that off just like that. So now we have mini tests being pulled in, and we have our gem code being pulled in. So now we can start writing out our first test. So let's look at an example here of what I'm talking about needing to get our code into this file. So if I comment out this require relative line, and then down on a new line here, if we make an array of integers, we'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we try to call our split by parity method on that. If we save that, and then over in a new terminal tab, if we try to run that file, so Ruby test parity prop.rb, if we try to run that, we'll see that we get a no method error for that array, like it doesn't know about our split by parity method. So that's why we need to get the code that we wrote in our file in our lib directory into this one so that we can use it here. So if we go back now to this tab and we uncomment this line, save that, and we pop back over here and we rerun that file again, we can see, well, we don't get anything, but we don't get an error either. So that's just to illustrate further why we need to get our code into this file. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to declare our test class. So we're going to say class is parity prop test, and now this needs to inherit from mini test, just like that. And let's go ahead and end that off. And then now we can start writing our test methods inside of this class here. So what we want to do first is, let's just say we want to write a test for our split by parity method. So let's do def test. Now this is a convention with mini test here. You want these method names to start with test and then underscore and then something else. So we'll say test split by parity, and we'll go ahead and end that off. So now what we want to do is let's go ahead and just set up some a test array here. So we'll just say arr equals just this array 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. And now what we can do here is we can write an assertion to compare calling array dot partition and then passing in the even method to that, and then the result of running our code of array dot split by parity. So what we'll do here is we want to say assert equal, and then the first argument you want to pass to assert equal is what your expected result is. So in our case, we want to say our expected result is calling array.partition and then even, just like that. The result of that is what we expect to get when we call our code like this. So array.split by parity. Okay, so that's our first test, and now let's go ahead and I'm going to open up a new terminal tab here, and the way we can run this is we can say Ruby we'll just pass the file to our Ruby interpreter here. So test/test parity prop.rb, and we go ahead and hit enter on that. It will go ahead and run our tests, and we see that we get one run, one assertion, no failures, no errors, no skips. The little green dot here is indicating that our test passed. One thing we should do is make sure that our test can fail as well. So let's go over here and let's change this to say odd instead. We'll go ahead and save that. We'll pop back over here and we'll rerun our tests, and we should see the failure, and we can see that we expected this to be the result of our calling our code, our split by parity method, but instead it was this. So this, let's put this back actually real quick and rerun this. So our tests are indeed working and running. So we've now set up testing for our code. We've written a test for our code. And now what we should do is go ahead and push this up to GitHub. All right, so let's go ahead and commit our new changes for adding our tests right now. So let's do a quick git status. We've also been working on the main branch. We probably should have made a new branch, and we still could, and commit to that branch, and then open a PR against main for this test branch to come in. Let's be good and go ahead and do that. So I'll just say git branch new, add tests. All right, so we're on a new branch there. Cool. So let's go ahead and again, let's do git status. So let's just go ahead and add this, add tests with mini test. All right, and let's go ahead and let's push this branch up. All right, and now if we go back over to our code on GitHub, we can see that the add test branch has recently been pushed. So let's go ahead and compare and pull requests. We want to open this against the main branch. And let's see. Let's write a little message here. Testing is important. So, yeah, so we wrote some tests. Put a little smiley there, why not? So let's create the pull request. Okay. So it's going to do a check, make sure there's no merge conflicts. And now we can go ahead and merge this in. But what would have been nice right here is, and will be nice in the future, is when someone, either ourselves or our friends or anyone else who is using the code, wants to submit a pull request to our gem or to our repository, it'd be nice if we could kick our test suite off to run against that new or the new changes that they want to introduce to the code here, or that anyone wants to introduce, whether it be us or anyone else. So I'm going to go ahead and merge this in now, and the next step that we're going to do from here is we're going to look at setting up a very simple GitHub action so that will run our test suite anytime code is pushed or a pull request is open against the main branch. So I'm going to hit merge right here and confirm this merge. And then once that is in, I'm going to go ahead and delete this branch. Okay, and then now we need to go to our local code here, and let's go ahead and check out our main branch, fetch. Okay, and then let's do a git pull for main as well, so that we get those new changes back in our main branch. So now we can go ahead and if we list out our branches here, we can go ahead and get rid of our add test branch locally, so that all we have left now is just our main branch. So now next, let's go ahead and see about how to set up a very basic GitHub action to run our test suite. All right, so over in the GitHub documentation, we can find a section in here in the actions section, and there's a build and test Ruby. Now, reading about this, so building and testing Ruby says we can create a continuous integration workflow to build and test our Ruby project. Awesome, this is exactly one. Now, there's a lot of information around GitHub Actions in this section of the docs. They say that there's some prerequisites for using this. I would definitely suggest, if you have any real interest here, to go learn more about it. But they do offer some simple starting examples that we can pretty much copy and paste right into our project and push this up to GitHub and start running GitHub Actions on our project. So down here in the using the Ruby starter workflow section, we can see that they provide us with a starter workflow that will work for most Ruby projects. And then to get started quickly, they want us to add the workflow to a .github directory and then also inside of a workflows directory. So the first thing we want to do is let's go create both of those directories right now. So back over in our terminal, I'm going to say make dir .github. Okay, and then let's make another dir .github slash workflows. I believe is the S workflows. Yes. Okay, and now let's see, inside of there, what we want to do is we can just make a workflow file. We can call it main. So let's say touch GitHub workflows main.yml. This needs to be a YAML file. All right, so now inside of our .github directory, we can go into workflows main.yaml, and then let's go back over to the GitHub docs and look at the example starter Ruby template here for this GitHub action. So let's see, the name of this action is Ruby, and so it's saying right here, on any pushes to the main branch, or when a pull request is open against the main branch, we want to kick off these jobs. The first job we want to do here is our test job. So we're saying what it's going to run on, and then these are the steps that we want this job to take in order to run our tests. So it checks out a GitHub action setup here and sets up Ruby, and then it will install our dependencies. It sets up our Ruby version, installs dependencies, runs bundle install, and it'll run our tests, bundle exec rake. Now, we don't have that, so we need to change this to work with our code here. So let's go ahead and copy. We'll just copy all of this stuff here, and then over in our file, we will go ahead and just paste that in. And so really what we want to happen right here to run our tests is just what we did in our terminal here. So we can say Ruby test/test parity prop .rb. So that's what we wanted to run. So let's go ahead and give this a commit. So we'll do, let's see, git status. We're on the main branch again. Let's go ahead and make a new branch and call it GitHub Actions. All right, and then let's see, git status. Let's just get commit everything. Let's see, initial GitHub action workflow. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and push that, and then we pop back over to our repository here. There's our branch coming in. Again, we want to open it against main here, and then a little message about this, our commit message here about what we're doing. Let's go ahead and create the pull request. We can look at the files changed here. So we added this file, and we can see everything that happened. So now let's go back here, and now we can see that on this pull request, it has started to try to run our GitHub Actions, but it has failed. So let's look at the details here and see what happened. Oh, run bundle install. So we don't have a gem file, so we don't need it to do that. So let's go back and edit our code here, so we can delete these two lines. Okay. Let's do move bundle install step. Okay, let's go ahead and push that again. And then let's go back to our code. If we refresh here, we should see a new run of our action getting kicked off here. We can click on the details again here to get more information about what's going on here. Okay, so we can see as we're running through everything, what's going on. It set up Ruby, it ran our tests, and our action is passing. So if we go back to pull request now, we can see that all checks have passed. The branch has no conflicts with the base. We can go ahead and merge. Let's go back in here and look at the details again at some of this stuff. So let's see, we can see the setup job stuff happening here is downloading from this repository. That's our GitHub action that was checking out here. Let's see, and then the run actions. Okay, it's running those, syncing our repository. All right, set up Ruby. Just setting us up with the Ruby version. Run our tests. It ran our test file, one run, one assertions, no failures, errors, or skips. And let's see, doing a little post run of our action, and then cleaning up orphan processes. So now we have our first little GitHub action set up. So now, anytime that someone or ourselves again opens a PR against this repository, this action will kick off. It'll run our tests and make sure that they pass, in which we can come back and check, and we can fix or try to help anyone else fix any errors associated with failing tests. And if there are none, we can go ahead and merge the code in and have a new version of our gem. So I'm gonna go ahead and merge this in. I'm gonna confirm that merge. I'll delete the branch. Perfect. And now back over here. Now we can see we have a little bit more structure to our gem now. We've got our GitHub workflows for our actions, our test directory. So things are moving right along here. So now let's go ahead and check out main to wrap up. And let's go ahead and do a git fetch from main. Whoops. Git fetch main. And then let's go ahead and pull main. Awesome. Great. So that wraps up this step of the process in creating your first Ruby gem. At this point, we have a pretty good foundation for understanding the kind of overall structure of gems, and now we can see a little bit more of the pieces that go into it. And like, we have our tests, and now we can run CI, so we can continue to improve upon this gem. We can get contributions from others. Others that want to use our code can see the state of things on our repository. So for example, they can come to our repository and see this little green check here indicating that as of right now, the current status of the main branch is it has a passing test suite. So hopefully that'll inspire some confidence in folks to use our gem if we wrote some good tests, that is. And yeah, so I think we're off to the races here. I think a good next step would be to add a README to provide some usage examples. We could also add some RDoc documentation to like have another way to display usage information. And yeah, from here we can grow this, well beyond the scale of just having this one method. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I hope you learned even more this time around, and go make a gem. Take care.